Is there anybody out there? I know for sure there's going to be a delay here, so if there's something going on. Can you guys hear me? Question I always have to ask, and I go, "Hey, I think there might be a delay." And Nikki, why are you still on? And I still haven't heard from anybody. Can y'all hear me? Or are you just going to be slacking? No comment, huh? Okay, 5x5. Unfortunately, you can't hear me. Okay, thank you. That's the first check you always have to do, is to make sure that people can actually hear you. That's always a good thing. Thank you. Yes, today is my birthday, which means that I imagine there will be lots of spankings. Verbal ones, well, not verbal ones. Thankfully, I can't hear y'all. Yeah, and you've noticed that I'm not wearing the cans. I realized I don't need the cans because I can't hear myself anyway. So it doesn't really matter now, does it? So that's basically the deal. So we're going to sit here and I'm going to drink coffee for a minute because I have been up way too long today. I need another nap, maybe 2 or 3. I've been working on YouTube stuff. I had to fix a couple of audio promo things. I wrote a bit. Was really pissed when I had to stop writing to go to the DMV. Had to get the old man driver's license photo shoot. So it's very different because my last one I looked like I just stepped off of a Harley motorcycle. That was 11 years ago. Time flew. So what else was I doing? I had to do a whole bunch of stuff in Final Cut, get that ready. And I had to set up a shitload of stuff for y'all and for everyone for various things that we'll talk about later. And actually got the levels set for my recording, which is wonderful. It's a good thing, especially considering some of you are actually expecting something for Fiendmaster. Besides this lovely presentation, where I sit here and suffer your abuse, and I'm sure it's already going on there. Happy Spawn Day. Thank you. Nikki, I really am shocked you're still awake. Really am shocked you're still awake. Thank you for showing up. That was kind of crazy on your behalf. You should know better. I meant to get a haircut today so that I would look nice and sparkly for y'all, and I figured I got too much shit to do. They'll just have to deal with it. Besides, I saw what my driver's license picture was going to look like and was like, that's livable. That's livable. Of course, now it's black and white on a piece of printer paper, but that's beside the point. I'm really surprised at this point in time that they don't have like the automatic card printers right there. They could just like take 2 seconds and shit you out a card. It'd be kind of nice. Did they have those somewhere else? Hi, Matt. Thank you for coming. Thank you for everyone for coming. So that's pretty much, matchsticks in the eyelids help. So I've heard. Either that or you could, be drinking caffeine on the third shift. Speaking of, I have to take this moment and say, get the dead in your cup because Corpse Coffee about all that's keeping me awake. I will probably work more on y'all stuff from now until Christmas than I have been able to in like a month. So I'm trying to cram in a whole bunch of things. And we'll get to talking about that later. So this is the first time y'all have had me all by your lonesome. I know some of you watch DRS and whatnot. And you ask questions there in our live shows. So basically, the way I want to run this before I get into any of my stuff is to find out if y'all have anything you want me to talk about regarding Derelict or The Black or any of my works, what music I'm listening to at the moment, what movies I've seen that I liked, whatever. Just let it go. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm here for your abuse. Just don't give me that shit where it's like, on page 67 of this book at this time, you said this and such. What did you mean by that? That the color was blue? Anyway. Get the dead in your cup. That's all I'm going to say. Corpse Coffee is officially a sponsor of the podcast, Shadow Publications in general, and everything else now. So it's a wonderful thing. Did I manage to? No, I haven't managed to finish watching it yet. No, I have not. I only managed to get like 45 minutes into it. She's talking about a horror movie that's really fascinating. It's pretty abusive, I think, but it's creepy and eerie, and you're just trying to figure out if these two people are completely off their rockers. But I have a feeling they are, and they're not. So I'm looking forward to actually being able to get back in there and listen or watch it rather. Like I said, things have been kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. I can't believe y'all don't have any questions. It's amazing to me. Besides that one. By the way, there are moments of serendipity where you make the mistake of going to Slashdot, and they have an article about a musician who is supposed to play at a cathedral in France, I think. It's either France or Germany, I don't remember which, and she's Swedish, I think. So anyway, they claim she's satanic, so they like practically threw a riot to keep her from performing at this cathedral. And so me, of course, I went, oh, okay, what's the name? So I had to go listen to it. And it's actually really cool instrumentals, extremely gothic. About as well, not instrumental, she sings. But it's the first time I've heard pipe organ music used in this manner, and it was really neat. I'll try and get the link for you guys if I can find the stupid thing. But I thought that was really hilarious. What am I going to plant where the deck was? I'm going to plant bodies. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the back of my house into a corpse farm. We'll have various, areas labeled about how long the corpse has been there, what condition the corpse was in when we got it, how deep it's actually buried. We'll have all that done. It'll be great. Oh boy. I'm trying to remember her name. Anna Hafferstoistoha. I don't speak Swedish, so my pronunciation is going to be way off. Way, way off. Anna von Hauswolf. Let's see. You asked. There it is. There it is. I think a corpse garden would be just awesome. I'm not really sure the HOA would go for it, but you have to think about these things. I have to answer questions like that. I actually don't know. Probably going to use probably going to actually put some ground cover in around the side of the house, maybe put some bushes there as well. And then I'll probably sod it a little bit, maybe. Not really a big fan of St. Augustine grass. It sucks. Plus, it really won't grow in that one area because it's all the goddamn trees, which, why am I complaining about that? But I need to do some grading and fill in some holes. So there is that. But I do want to put ultimately a little gazebo out there or something similar where I can go right outside this office and write, and then come right back in this office because I have a sliding glass door here. So I'd like to get something there. It's under the tree. Will stay relatively cool over the length of the day, and that I can basically hang out at without too much trouble and get the fuck out of the office, which is wonderful. You see, that's another reason, Matt, you should not have a patio. If you got a missus or significant other and you're kind of an asshole, you probably don't want the patio because you don't want them thinking about the fact that one of these days, they're going to bury you down there so the dog will poop on you. The dog digging you up. Yeah, that would be awkward. That's like the telltale heart of dogs or something. That's got to be in a horror movie somewhere as a joke. And if not, why not? That's my question. Other questions. I gotta check Patreon messages here real quick. Okay. Patreon can sometimes be a joy. Okay, folks. What do you want from me, huh? I'm here to dance for you. It's my birthday. I'm not going to strip though. That you really don't want that. That's not happening. I checked the YouTube's terms and conditions, and they said no, absolutely not. So that's just not going to happen. I wonder if I can see y'all's comments easier if I go over here. Okay. There we go. Pop out chat. Let's see if this is any better. Okay, there we go. Ah! All right, there are more comments now. It's wonderful. Okay. How did I come up with the idea for the black? Wow. I guess I haven't talked about that in a long time. Let's see. Sever Press wanted a book. They were going to publish Closet Treats, and they said he said he wanted something else, something with deep sea thriller or something along those lines. And so I was hanging out with I got Terry and Justin on chat, and I said, what the fuck? And they were like, well, what's the problem? I was like, well, I need something to get on an oil rig, I think, but he doesn't want zombies on an oil rig for some reason. So we started talking, and then Terry made some comment. I don't remember what it was, but I think he may have said the oil was alive. And that's when the blob of the thing, all that jumped into my head, and it was just like, oh fuck yes, we got to do this. So that when I sent the synopsis back to Gary for it, it was just kind of like, yeah, you start throwing money at me. And then of course it sold really well because it was the best, in my opinion, it was the best marketed book Sever Press ever did, for me anyway. It was the best marketed. It was the one that hit the splash, and it was the one that got everybody's attention, so to speak. So that's why we're back here now, where we're having this little tete-a-tete about me coming back to the series now. What new ideas are you mulling over at the moment? I'm cogitating about underwater weaponry. And I'm going to talk about this for a moment because there is a reason for it. I mean, I'll explain that reason for the moment. Yes, because I got in BookBub 3 times. You're right. Underwater weaponry. Apparently, the Russians were so afraid of Navy frogmen that they developed something beyond a spear gun, because they realized that the average rifle wasn't really going to do any damage, and that spear guns weren't working to get through their armor. I was not aware frogmen wore armor, but okay. So what they did was they came up with essentially a bolt gun that fires ammunition that's a lot longer than a bullet, but it's not really a spear. It's kind of in between, more like a crossbow, I guess. And it could travel with enough force to make something like 30 meters and still have velocity and impact when it hit. And I was like, oh, okay, this thing was designed in the 60s. I wonder what it would look like today. And I never really thought about what the biggest scuba dive underwater battle I can remember that's small arms is from that Bond movie, Thunderball, where they've got everybody down there, you know, with the spear guns, the whole 9 yards. That's what I keep thinking of when I think of those weapons. Is like, oh, that I wonder if that's where they got some of that stuff, or that was not known at that time. Anyway, it made for very interesting reading because it made me wonder, because I've never heard of this before. So it just goes to prove that there's still some old-fashioned ideas about some of those weapons that probably could really be perfected or already have, which wouldn't shock me at all at this point. Do I know the whole story when I start, or do you work toward it? Okay. That's a very complicated question. Very complicated question. Depending on the book, I usually have a scene in my head that I want to get to. It's what drives the book. It's what starts the book. It's why the book exists, is because of that scene. And then the characters kind of come along with it. The characters are in that scene, and I see something going on, and it strikes up how those characters got there. I need to figure out how they got there, and then what happens after this scene. That's more or less how I work, and that's why I often end up starting books in the middle. There's been quite a few where that's not been the case. Derelict, I did not start in the middle. Closet Treats, absolutely started in the middle. And I think Destruction, kind of started in the middle too. So I think it just kind of depends on what book it is. The last two that I'm working on right now, it's very linear, so I think I know where I'm going with both. We'll see. But I do have an image I'm working toward with both of them, and they'll be good. I hope you'll like them. I'll just leave it at that. It's very rarely where I know what the actual ending is going to be, or the climax of the book, whatever. I have ideas, or maybe I have that scene, but often by the time I get there, it's already changed completely. And so whatever that's why if you listen to us on DRS, I'm always saying, Terry's always saying he never knows when he's going to get there. I usually have an idea of where I'm going to get, but it's not often the case when I get there. It's changed, which is fine, because my brain knows better after writing the book, so much of the book, than it does when starting the book. If that makes any sense. Hypersonic torpedoes. Yeah, I was just thinking about the Mythbusters thing too. It's unless you're in GTA, where you can go down like 5 meters and still get shot from a helicopter. Super cavitating weaponry would be mad cool. Yeah, I like it. How many oh shit moments have I had during the writing process? More than I can possibly explain. Sometimes I will have those oh shit moments while I'm recording about, hey, I need to change this because this is so much better. Happens. And as long as it doesn't cause continuity problems, I'm perfectly okay doing that. If it causes continuity problems, I go, oh shit, I got to put that in another book. But there are often times where I have a problem and I solve it when just walking away from it, or it just comes to me when I'm doing something else completely. It's weird how it works. Fishing cantos and store on somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it has. The first Derelict book was not supposed to be what it turned into. In fact, the Derelict saga was not supposed to exist. So take from that what you will. I think the Black kind of surprised me too, about where, especially Outbreak and Evolution as well, about where things were going. Evolution kind of shocked me where it went. I still may revisit it and rewrite portions of it. I may actually add to it, because there may be some things that I missed that I want. Well, there are some things I felt I didn't have time, I didn't have space, I didn't have energy to put in. Now I'm like, Yeah, maybe I need to go back and revisit that book big time. So it could happen. Do I find reading things out loud makes me want to change them? Often, often. I got into a really terrible habit of these short, choppy sentences to begin paragraphs, and it drove me nuts. But I kept doing it. So I went back and I start editing the shit out of it. But if I don't find them during the edits, then I find them during recording and I look at them and they're awkward and they sound bad to my ear and I go fuck. And then go back and I replace it with something a little more applicable and hopefully less awkward, to sound more like a writer rather than ugh, 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 put down words. Am I the author or am I the conduit? I would say the hands are are the conduit for the psyche. All the other shit goes on there. We know the answers to all of our questions. We really do. We just our brains have covered it up and hidden it from us, and we have to work our way through those blocks to come to it. If you wanted to talk about knowing everything and have quantum entanglement or whatever else, it's kind of how it would work. Right now, we got a whole bunch of blocks in the way. Remove the blocks, you see everything. The blinders are in front of the eyes. How many times have you hit yourself in the forehead and gone, I wish I had done this instead? Well, writers get that ability. We can do it. So if we find something wrong with our world, we can go back and fix it. And sometimes we say our world is too dull. We need to add something to it. And that's when the real fun begins. It's easier to add, I think, than take away. Well, no, it's easier. With writing, I think it's easier to actually add than it is to take away. Because taking away usually means that you have to blow away whole or restructure whole plot lines. Adding is, I think, a lot easier. A lot easier. Do I have a favorite character? Hmm. I'm in love with Dr. G, but I can't explain to you why because I haven't written those stories yet. Apart from him, Kelly, Dickerson, Catfish, uh, Sarah from Outbreak. I really love Amy from Gears Inferno as well. And Colette from the Garaga stuff. There's quite a few characters in there that I can't really pick a favorite. I can tell you this though, if it's a character that I want to write another story for, and I want to get them into a series, or I discovered them in another book, but I want to write their story, then obviously it's something about them has stuck with me. And I have quite a few of those, fortunately. And I'm at some point I might have to kill some of them off because it shit happens. Oh, got you wanting to make candied jalapenos. I don't think I've ever had candied jalapenos, but they sounded so disgusting. I was like, oh, he's got to eat these. He's just got to eat these. I don't even know where that came from. How am I not mentioning Tony? Tony's a tough one because he really hasn't had any screen time yet. I still have not figured out. I figured out several ways to bring him in, but I have to work on stuff that makes money at this point, unfortunately. Did I base Catfish on any particular programmer I know? Catfish is based on a real person, yes, but he's not a programmer. He actually makes robots and was a pilot for ROVs in underwater stuff. And in fact, some of the details in the black were, taken from that, and it just kind of ballooned from there. And of course, now that I've done all this stuff with robotics the last couple of years, it's like, all right, well, we go do the next leg of the black extinction. Then there's absolutely no reason why I can't bring some of the robotics expertise in there as well. and know a little bit more about how these things are built and the kinds of things that, somebody like Catfish or K&B Construction would put on there. Somebody's going to ask me a question in a minute. I know it's coming. Catfish does actually have a Charlie the Tuna tat on his shoulder as a catfish with a smoking a joint or a cigarette. I don't remember which. Maybe it's a cigar. I don't remember. Real people situations often other than the graveyard. No, I do not. I try and stay the hell away from real people as much as possible. I will occasionally include history. Quite often will include history. Who am I kidding? About things that have happened. But I like if you go back and you look at the Black, you'll see that I never mention a date. I never mention who's president. I never mention anything that you can use to actually track down what decade it's in. And there's a reason for that. Even in Gears Inferno, I make references to things, but they're generic enough that people who wouldn't know any better will not get them. People who are local to Houston might. But, it's really funny because somebody was like, are you going to take out that part where you talk about, how bad the stadium is and how the Astros are always losers? They just won the World Series. I was like, alternate fucking reality. Who cares? I want to bash the Astros, goddammit, because they suck for 5 years. So, I try not to keep things in this timeline because this timeline is screwed up. That's why you probably won't see any mention of COVID in any books of mine about this epidemic or whatever else has been going on. I probably won't get into it unless there's a reason to write a book in this reality, because all the other books that I have are kind of on their own track. So I don't want to go there unless I have to. There's other things I want to talk about. So I'll probably ignore that for now. Yeah, Catfish is based on a real guy. Inspiration for the characters. Yeah, I've got mannerisms from other people I know that are put in there. But they often don't have anything to do with their namesakes. There's often absolutely no similarity between the two things at all, which is perfectly fine with me. It can be funny though. Some people got offended and by what I did, and I was like, what do you want from me? I told you you get a character. Here you go. This is what I need this character to do. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be pretty. Airborne black disease. Ooh. No. No. See, there's one problem with the Black eating everything. It would soon run out of food. So the idea that the Black, that M2, let's call it M2, the idea that M2 would take over an entire biome is bollocks in my mind. And there's a reason for that. It's not the Blob. It is smart enough to know that there's a finite amount of matter that it can get its hands on. I think in evolution, I kind of alluded to that, but we'll discuss that later. But there are things like that I have to navigate and somehow show you so that when we get to extinction, everything makes sense. I can't wait to get to extinction. I got so much to write before I get there, but we're going to get there. God damn it. Jelly Gator NATO. I am not going to write Jelly Gator NATO. Terry is welcome to write Jelly Gator NATO or whatever else they came up with that was just ridiculous. I spoke about writing Black NATO, but I have shied away from that for lots of reasons. One of which being no. Could it eat your kids? It could. They could do that. There's something wrong with you people. I'm just going to say that right now. So who knows what a rib is? RIB, and I'm not talking about what goes in your chest. No. Rigid inflatable boat. You know, a Zodiac. Go to Zodiac sites sometimes and check out all the models they have, especially under the military service side. Yes, as in the boat, as in the boat. Rigid inflatable boat. And yeah, go check that stuff out sometime. You will see some really cool shit. And again, it's all applicable and relevant to something. Oh, somebody's working a log4j issue. I'm shocked. I'm sorry to hear that, JR. Good luck with your recompile. Do I suffer with imposter syndrome, and how do I deal with it? Every day I suffer with imposter syndrome. Every damn day. Every time I get to the keyboard. Then most of the time I tell that part of myself to fuck off that I'm playing, and therefore sucking is allowed. And most of the time I listen. But yeah, it's a real problem, especially when I get in front of the mic lately. I've gotten really shy about the mic. It made recording the last leg of Derelict really difficult. And I don't know what the hell is going on with that, but I sometimes just get really anxious about it. But now that I've got my audio issues sorted, as far as I know, y'all are going to have to tell me when we start putting the new stuff out, because I've got a new configuration, a new everything, new workspace, new, God, the only thing that's remaining the same is the goddamn hardware, but everything else is moved around. So it's like, fuck, I hope this sounds okay, but we'll find out one way or another, I guess. But that's basically what you have to do, is kind of throw it away as much as possible. Get rid of it. You're supposed to suck when you're practicing. I mean, you know, nobody picks up the trumpet for the first time and knows how to play it. And even after learning how to play it, it takes time to perfect your embouchure. It takes time to perfect your breathing. It takes time to perfect your idea of phrasing, your understanding of how far a slide needs to go, how to make lisses, how to, you know, which key, you know, which keys you need down to make the sound you want. And you have to practice every day to get good at it. Writing's kind of the same way. And so is acting, so is directing, so is narrating, so is all those things. You just have to keep doing it. And you're going to suck at first. And you should. If you start out as a genius, you're going to suck later. How much do we know about M2? How much more is there to reveal? I'm certain you won't get specific here. What do we know about M2? We don't know where it came from, apart from being in a trench. We know that it doesn't follow atomic structures. It is something else. We know that it doesn't make sense from a physics point of view. We know that it doesn't make sense from a chemistry point of view. And we know that although it follows some biological rules, it violates a shitload of them. We know it, quote unquote, reproduces asexually, but that may be the wrong word to use. We also know that if it is split up, it will form into disparate creatures. In Outbreak, we discovered that larger entities will prey upon smaller entities, adding them to their whole. Let's see, what else do we found out in Outbreak that something with X-rays does something to the black, but it was never chased down because there was nobody to chase down that, but that's there. There's a couple of other little things in evolution, which if you're paying attention will be important later, which I'm not going to discuss here. What else do we know about it? We know that it eats anything organic. We know that it can eat wood. It takes a while. It can eat things that are non-porous, but it takes longer. Metal's non-porous, has a much better chance of surviving, but it somehow strips the electrons from the metal and makes it brittle. That's what we know. And that it doesn't give a shit whether it's water or land that it's on. It is extremely adaptable. Let's see. How much more is there to reveal? Wow, I think I just covered some things. We've only ever seen this thing in a lab. or on a rig, or in a lab, or in a hospital. We've never seen it outside. We don't know what it does outside. We don't know how it hunts. We don't know what it does. I wonder. Yes, getting to sentience is damn scary, and that's kind of the. Well, I'm not going to say a fucking word. There's something I want to read to you tonight, but I'm not going to read that piece because I think it will give away too much right now. But I'll read something else from Extinction, and then we can kind of discuss. Then we'll have a reason to discuss K and B construction. M2 in space. Somebody asked me about that, and it was an interesting theory, which is the black is the polar opposite of the exosolar entities in Derelict, and that is one of the reasons why there's names from the two books or names from the Black series are shared across Derelict. It's because of that. I have no comment. I have no comment on anything. So if you're asking me to spoil something that big, it ain't happening. I will just say that there have been a few theories tossed around that are 90 to 95% correct. I will say that. However, most of them have luckily been passed to me in private and aren't sitting on a comment blog somewhere where you can go figure out my master evil plan, because it is masterful and it's evil. I'm very happy about it. The construction company. I've been thinking more about the fact that we have essentially with M2 we have a cryptid hunting team. If you don't know what a cryptid is, it's a life form that just shouldn't be around. Technically Bigfoot is a cryptid, I guess you could say. Humongous spiders running around biting the shit out of people, that would be a cryptid. The black, if you wanted to put it in there, from what happened in evolution, it's pretty obvious that whomever has the resources to deal with him too is not a typical government agency and is not using typical military resources, if you paid attention. So I kept thinking, all right, so let's say that there's some kind of government organization, maybe government's the wrong word for it, but global organization perhaps, that deals with little baddies that threaten commerce or whatever. And they basically do the Men in Black thing. They're trying to keep the shit from making the news. They're trying to keep the stuff away. Or maybe it's actually something really crazy, like, something's threatening a nuclear reactor. Who do they send in for this bullshit? And let's think about the kinds of things these people need to know. Not everything can be solved with a gun. Not everything can be solved with explosives, regardless of what, the army saying is or whatever. Not everything can even be solved by a rod of God falling, a tungsten telephone pole falling from near orbit to destroy something. Even that won't necessarily solve the problem. Sometimes you have to have people who are capable of thinking around corners and coming up with goofy shit. And they are people who are not typically bothered by certain ethical issues that may stand in front of making a buck. So I found a very interesting idea to kind of think about that kind of thing. Who are these people? Who are these people and what are they doing? I'll give you a perfect example. Berlin's new airport. Yes. Oh my God, it's been there forever. It's still not open. Now, for a long time, the reasons wasn't really put forward, but now they're finally saying that what happened was whoever designed it, the way they designed the air system doesn't work. So it's not pumping, it's not getting enough air from outside for the lower levels. Oops. But what I immediately thought of when I heard this story about the fact they couldn't open the airport because of something down below is, what did they find down there? Did they find a portal? Did they find some kind of relic from the Nazis that's been sitting down there lurking? You know, the supposedly the Nazis run all this arcane shit at the end, and occult, blah blah blah, see Hellboy and 1,000 other movies. What if they summon something down there? What if it's sitting down there causing problems? Maybe the reason why construction has stopped is because the workmen kept getting eaten. Well, who do you send in to do that shit? Who do you send in to clear out the bad guys? You know. So that idea of having a group called, you know, construction, to come up with ingenious solutions to fix issues, you know, that aren't always with force, but they are very capable of applying force if necessary, and will do so without any hesitation. I like that idea. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So there is something called K&B Construction, named after Mike Cafus and Peter Bryant from the Mythwits. So K&B Construction. We'll get to that later. Oh boy. Really, really going to go into that. There are different types of violence. There's nuke it from orbit, and there's surgically, let's get this done so nobody else gets hurt, or so we don't collapse everything above us. Morally ambiguous. I can't remember the line in and maybe that's it in Grosse Point Blank, when he said how he was recruited, that he had a certain moral, I can't remember what he said, sliding scale or something like that. It was just, that is the greatest movie ever for a hitman sitting there explaining why he does what he does. So they're having a conversation with the woman he wants to marry, trying to explain to her how much he loves her and why he's a hitman and all this other crazy shit. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. If you're my generation, you definitely will appreciate it. I'm sure you have seen it already, probably more than once, just for the soundtrack, because you're sick people. All right, what else you got? What else? What else? Yeah, series type thing. That's part of what I want to do, though, is I want to get some of these things where I can write little novellas or novels, full length ones, not necessarily really long, but like, 75, 80K, just stupid adventures, because I can do dumb things with those characters. And that's part of it. I want a lot of humor in those stories, just stupid shit happening. And we'll get to that eventually. There we go. I possessed a certain moral ambiguity the CIA was looking for. Yes, those folks. And whom do they recruit? It's another question. I was working on Station 3, and right, more pine cones. We'll get to that in a second. I was working on Station 3, and it suddenly dawned on me that I hadn't. I wanted to get back into the water. Really wanted to get back into the water, and I had this idea for a new book, a new black book. And so I'm doing Station 3 and this other thing at the same time, which has been kind of crazy. Right, more pine cones. Yeah, we got to clear the decks first. I got to get this. I got to get 2 books done before I even think about more Derelict or Soul and Beyond. But I have 3 different Soul and Beyond books underway right now, so there will be more pine cones in the future. Trust me, it will happen. When was the last time I wrote a 70, 80K novel? It's been a while. Evolution, I think, was only 86. Maybe it was only 78. I don't remember. A lot of female characters weren't fainting daisies waiting on the hero to save the day. Was that a decision or just how the story unfolded? That's a really funny question. I got accused on YouTube of Shauna Sigler being a fainting daisy and that she might as well not be in the story. It's like, oh, okay. Whoa. That kind of hit me kind of hard, but I was trying to remember back to that character in there and I was like, well, yeah, I guess I could see that in the first 30,000 words, but I think she transformed quite nicely. I like strong female characters because they are fantastic foils. They usually have an inner turmoil of the chip on their shoulder. There's usually a lot of imposter syndrome in my female characters. If you really think about it, they don't always know what they're doing, just like the male characters, and that's perfectly okay. The thing is, they think on their feet. But what I like about female characters is that they can go against the grain. And it's also kind of a slap in the face of the final girl syndrome in 80s horror movies, 80s slasher flicks. I always had the final girl. It's kind of a slap in the face of that in a way. I want to have that progression, and I also want to kind of explore those maternal instincts, especially it comes along with managing teams. And it's fun. I'm not a woman, okay? I'm a guy, and I think guy things. And sometimes you just want to get into the head of someone who's not you. And hopefully I do it well enough that, I don't, no woman would ever say that. Hopefully I'm not getting hit with that. Hopefully not. But I want to write real characters as much as possible. And I love writing strong women characters. They're fun, just so much fun. And Callie was basically my main target for Derelict. She is definitely the one who experienced the most growth. And I love that about those characters as they did grow. They're not static. Happily. Not even the damn trio is static. Think about it. It's kind of wacky. Working in space and working underwater are very similar. You don't get to make many mistakes. Terry and I actually discussed this on DRS for one episode about the fact that in space you have no pressure, in water you have immense pressure, ridiculous pressure. In space you have no oxygen. In water there's plenty of oxygen. You just can't process it. The biomes are very similar, and the thing is, both of them you can't survive without being in an enclosed suit of some kind. And when I'm talking about water, I'm talking about deep water, obviously. I'm not talking about, ooh, I can dive down 5 feet and hold my breath for 92 gives a shit. Can you go down 20 meters and hang out for 30 seconds or 2 minutes and then make your way back up? Let me know how that works. Or 500 meters, 1,000 meters. They are lovely environments to create bottle stories. A bottle story is one where the characters are literally unable to escape their environment. The environment becomes part of the character. So with Derelict, for instance, Mira was a bottle for Dickerson and Callie and those folks. And also even the ship, SNR Black itself is a bit of a bottle. It's your home. If it goes away, you're fucked. You're gone. So there's like all these little things you have to worry about as far as how to deal with your environment while you're dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with, like your exosolar creatures or whatever else coming at you, space phenomenon. There's always that catch. If I'm outside in the trees and everything else, I stumble and fall. And if I hit something like a branch and perforate the side of my my skin and everything else, okay, I bleed a bit. Maybe it kills me eventually, but I got a good shot of living through that. That happens in space or while I'm under pressure, not so much. It's a completely different animal. It just that kind of environmental pressure, pardon the pun, does make for a wonderful place to put characters in the boiler. Just drop them in, hit boil and watch what happens. It's a lot of fun. And I actually like going back to a larger environment. It's been a long time since I've done that. Even Station 3 is a bit of a bottle. So I'm actually really looking forward to enjoying not being in the bottle right now. It's kind of fun. Um, they do have similarities. I love the similarities, and I love the things that you can do back and forth. And I think if you look at Derelict and the Black series and start looking at um, the different ways to put the pressure on the characters, it's the whole, oh, we're in quarantine. We walk outside, they shoot us. We stay in, we get eaten. What do we do? Well, I guess we try not to get eaten. And that's basically what it comes down to. Well, it's kind of similar situations over there. It's like every monster book. The thing about writing monster books is to come up with something just fun. And, every monster is unique. Even if you're ripping off somebody else's stuff, every monster is unique, which is part of what makes fun writing it. Really does. Excuse me. Holy crap. I've been babbling for 50 minutes now. Oh, that's scary. That is very scary. Right, more pine cones. I love that. All right, I think what we're gonna do is we are going to, how long is this? It's 15, 20 minutes maybe. How much can I get through? This is pretty raw stuff too, so my apologies in advance. Okay, I think, yeah, I can do this. All right, I'm going to read something from Extinction, actually, and then we'll get to talking about what comes after this. So this is, like I said, pretty raw. Hasn't really been edited, obviously, but it should give you an idea of where things are going. Especially if you read Evolution, I think you'll be going, "Oh fuck," which is exactly what I want. So here we go. As soon as I clear my throat and take a water. I haven't read aloud alive in a while, so please forgive me. There we go. Okay. Yep. The grinding sound of distant jackhammers ceased. Moore shaded her eyes as she looked over at the giant divot in the ground that had once been Miskatonic University. For the first time in over a week, the clouds had departed, as had the cold weather, leaving the days in the low 70s, the nights in the 50s. Strange November, she thought for the 1,000th time. 2 days after she destroyed Miskatonic University, the clearing of rubble began. During the daylight hours, construction personnel removed debris while 3 special military units provided cover. When the sun sank below the horizon, the construction crews departed, and a different group of specialists arrived for the night shift. That had gone on for more than a week. She had watched the beginnings of the operation via her room in the guest house during the 48-hour quarantine. That had been the second most nerve-wracking thing about being locked up, poked, prodded, tested, and watched. The civilians she brought into the project, the ones she'd failed to keep safe, surrounded her, forced her to confront them and feel their silent wrath. Debriefing them during the first 48 hours was crucial. The quarantine had mostly been a ruse. She knew none of her people had been infected. If she had suspected they were, well, they wouldn't have had to worry about quarantine. Still, regulations existed for a reason. She made the most of those 2 days, but had hardly slept. Between watching the surveillance films of Miskatonic University's last hour, not to mention her initial debrief with Shauna Sigler, Moore's brain had been on fire with ideas and theories. None of them were good. Dr. Moore, this is Bryant. Over. She touched her headset. Moore, go. Bryant was one of her special construction engineers. Cephas, the other specialist, was down with him. They'd performed an exhaustive analysis of the stresses on the remains of the facility and marked off what they thought was safe versus unsafe. But even safe was a relative term, and they had to provide enough safety equipment to minimize the risks. Considering those risks included the likelihood of death, any edge was welcome. A breeze rippled the edges of the tarp and they flapped annoyingly loud. Moore would have to speak to the sergeant about that. Doctor, we're go for the ROV. Over. Moore glanced at the sturdy desk on which multiple computer monitors, 2 powerful computers, and an array of other gear sat. Are we a go? Catfish shifted in his ergonomic chair and moved the Waldo controls again, his eyes following the camera view. Put him in the water, he said. Bryant, you're a go. Over. She stepped away from the tarp's edge and back beneath its thick shadows. After heading to another desk, she logged into her workstation and brought up the feeds. The facility, first constructed in the early 70s, had been retrofitted just a decade ago, but no one had bothered studying the changes in the water table, much less the ground. Goddamn place had been leaking on the quarantine and maintenance levels. So when she blew the complex, the water came in. Engineering, the facility's second floor, hadn't taken on water. However, most of its floor had caved in, providing a deep hole into the water-filled debris-filled mess that filled the deep hole that had once been the bottom of 3 levels of Miskatonic U. The science, quarantine, and maintenance levels had borne the brunt of the explosions for good reason. The science level had access to the samples via a dispersal system. And in fact, that is where the first incident occurred. But the quarantine level had contained the barrel and the storage container. The barrel, the original 30-liter sample of the creature found by the exploration rig Leaguer, had been on that level, encased in glass and steel. The storage tank had been another matter altogether. The sample inside it had not only dissolved human beings, but had also consumed biological waste, and God only knew what else. It had evolved quickly in the lab. Then it escaped. The massive 250 liters worth of creature attacked her scientists and nearly escaped. Would have escaped if not for coming in contact with something even more evolved. The creature the science team had named Beta Prime, or simply Prime for short. Prime had destroyed its ancestor, and then Moore bit her lip. That was the question she still didn't have an answer to. What she did know is that the creature appeared to have tried to follow Shauna Sigler's progress through the upper levels of the facility, as if it were trying to find a way to get to her. But for what reason? It had to be something more than just for a meal. Prime had watched her. Prime had hypnotized her, or something very much like it. Moore shivered as she thought of the implications of that fact. It wasn't something she really wanted to consider. The ROV cameras showed the lip of a thick layer of steel and fractured concrete. The view jerked and shimmied as the cables spun at the line for its descent. Nearly 5 meters separated engineering from the murky, debris-choked mess that had once been the heart of Miskatonic University. They had used a crane to lift the heaviest of portions of debris and remove them, but there were still rebar, chunks of concrete large enough to make a desk out of, and who knew how many kilograms of toxic substances. The tunnel they'd created through the worst of it would provide Catfish a new view all the way down to the maintenance and foundation levels. That's what Moore wanted to see. Truth be told, she didn't give a shit about any toxins that might seep into the groundwater here. They could turn the damn thing into a Superfund site and let the regular EPA folks handle the resulting mess. But there was one thing she wanted to make sure didn't seep into the groundwater. If they found the barrel intact, something she considered impossible, it would be one thing. But she had to assume the worst. Well, that wasn't quite true. There was bad, worse, and worst. Bad? They find out that either Prime or Alpha, the original sample from Leaguer, had survived, and what lay in wait for them was a big, starved, and pissed off. That didn't make any goddamn sense. The original sample from Leaguer had survived, and what lay in wait for them was big, starved, and pissed off. If that was the case, she could easily solve the problem. Worse, that would be that both of them survived and had melded into a single sentient. She didn't even want to know what that was going to look like, much less the kinds of attributes they could take on. The absolute worst case, they find nothing. No sign of the M2 creatures whatsoever. If that happened, she'd have to assume they had escaped containment and prepare accordingly. The ROV's lights shined across the visible walls of the lab level. Blackened scorch marks had burned into the concrete and in some cases left behind crevices. She knew that damage had been caused by the thermite explosives. The room should have been destroyed by one hell of a firestorm before the level came down on itself. Buckled steel supports, their middles twisted and bent from the extreme heat, reflected back the light with a dull pallor. A smile touched her face. If the steel had looked polished, she would have aborted the ROV mission immediately. There wouldn't be a point. M2 was known to do something in metal and glass. It stripped away atoms or maybe changed their structure in the material. Either way, it left steel clean and highly reflective like polished silver. It was a good sign. If the creatures had escaped, they might not have escaped through beyond the quarantine level. She relaxed. A little. As the ROV finally hit the water, the cameras showed a swirling mess of debris. Much of the building, now reduced to rubble, had collapsed into the ground atop its sublevels and sub-basements. But the water had streamed in, and everything that wasn't burned to a crisp before the shockwave arrived floated beneath the murky surface. A piece of electrical cable, the insulation completely burned off, glimmered dully in the light. The copper strands had been practically unraveled. At least they didn't have to worry about corpses. The explosion and firestorm would have turned them into charcoal briquettes, and if that hadn't done the job, M2 would have absorbed any organic material it could. That was, if it had escaped. The ROV slowed its descent and came to a stop. The camera view jerked again. Bryant to Moore, ready to unhook, over. She glanced at Catfish. He nodded to her and went back to his screen. Bryant, you're a go. The computer screens jerked again as the cables detached from the ROV's fuselage. Bryant to Moore, we're clear, over. Stand by. The camera panned and the lights swiveled, their focus tightening and widening as Catfish gave the equipment one last check. I'm ready, he said at last. Moore to Bryant. Fish is in the water and swimming, over. Copy. Good hunting. Out. Moore sighed. Let's get to it. Catfish hadn't waited. The ROV had performed a sweep through the debris, the flotsam bumping up against the cameras and through the light's beams. There were some places on the level that he couldn't check, and Moore marked the coordinates on her facility map. Portions of the walls had crumbled and creating stacks and piles resting against the building's remaining steel skeleton. The gaps were too small for an ROV to enter. They just have to hope M2 wasn't hiding in there. All right. There we go. Okay, now you've heard extinction. A little bit of it. A little bit of the beginning. You may have to go back and refresh yourself with evolution. I know I did. There's other stuff that probably isn't right in there that I have to correct because it needs massive vetting. Needs to be done. But that's where that's heading. Excuse me. That's where extinction is going. So that should kind of give you an idea of what's up. Now, since we've been talking about the black and etc., Miskatonic U. Miskatonic University was an evolution. What do you want from me? That's one of the things I want to go back and work on a little bit more is that whole thing. Anyway, those of you who are Patreon supporters of mine, this doesn't change anything for you at all. You're kind of locked in, so you don't have a problem with this. This doesn't affect you whatsoever. Although Patreon is now has annual memberships. I have enabled those. So if you want to give a year in advance at a level, you're perfectly welcome to do that. However you want to do it. Now, I now also have memberships. If you don't like Patreon, you want to use Ko-Fi, got you covered. You want to buy me a coffee, I got you covered. You want a YouTube memberships, I got you covered. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm expanding everything out so that I've got cover from basically all the services that are out there. So if you prefer to get your stuff one way or another or whatever, or you just do not like, you know, Google making money or Patreon making money or somebody else, go look at these other services and see if they're what you want. You can use them to tip me, obviously. Buy me a coffee is probably the best one to do that. But all that stuff kind of goes back into the podcast and whatnot. So that said, okay, those of you who are already Patreon, if you want to ditch Patreon and go to something else that's already there that I do, no problem. It'll take me a while to move content over, but once all these things go live, anything that goes on Patreon goes to all these other things. Period. End of story. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. So that being said, if you are a supporter of mine, you're in good shape because starting Christmas Day, the first episode of the Black Oceania will drop. What is the Black Oceania? If you'll remember at the end of Evolution, there was discussion about when the quarantine was over, Sarah just disappeared. Where did she go? She went to go check out reports of a lifeboat with the word Leaguer stenciled on its side. Hilarity ensues. I'll leave it at that. So Black Oceania takes place at the Duke of York Island in Papua New Guinea. So that's going to be really interesting. So we're going to have underwater, on water, and on land, all in that chain of islands. And I get to talk about some crazy stuff. And at the course of all the Black books take place in your future. So I'm going to prognosticate a bit. But I do base a lot of this stuff on facts, how much the sea level has risen there, the number of volcanic eruptions, what has had to be evacuated over the last decade, where people can no longer live, where they lived like hundreds of years now can no longer live there because it's all underwater, or earthquakes kind of cracking it in half. So it's a biome under stress. There's very few people. It's a perfect place for a good horror book. So yeah. That's going to drop starting Christmas Day. The $2 folk are going to get that. And here's the thing. The Black Oceania is going to be basically available through the pay services only for now. And there's reasons why. And I'm going to make another video about this and also a podcast about this and drop that on Christmas Day too. But here's the deal. I get the rights back to the Black. In fact, I just had to extend them for Sever Press. Once I get the rights back to the Black, I want to re-release those books. That means new covers. That means new edits. That means that I have to take the time to go back through all of that stuff. And that's 4 or 5. It's gonna be 5 books now. It's ultimately 6 or 7. Who the fuck knows? But I have to go back through all the earlier books and I have to go fix them. I have to get all that stuff ready. And I have to do that and have all those things ready before I cut the cord with Severed. Otherwise, they go out of print, which will fuck me as well. So the plan is to use part of this money that is going for Oceania to afford the covers, to afford the editor, as well as keep the roof over my head. So it's going to be an exclusive deal on those services. It will eventually be released again or released publicly on the podcast. That will happen, but it's probably going to be a year from now. I mean, I've got to get Station 3 done because I promised it and it's already late. So that's the next thing in the podcast cam would be Station 3. Black Oceania is going to stay right here with y'all on Patreon, on Ko-Fi, on Buy Me a Coffee, on whatever service, YouTube, whatever is out there. And I'm probably forgetting something. The book will be available same way as Trident was at the $5 and $10 level, folk. Only this time you'll get the full ebook and whatnot when all of it's done, when all of it's said and done. Even though it won't be the official ebook. And more importantly, if you're at the $10 level, you're going to get instant episodes, which means that the moment I finish a chapter, that it is produced and that it is ready to rock and roll, it goes into your feed. So you will get the episodes I'm hoping to shoot for. You're going to get 3 chapters a week. So instead of how I've been doing this before with other books, with Oceania, I'm kind of shooting for a specific chapter length. So every chapter will be somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes of audio for you. And that's what you're going to get every week from here on out. And if I finish the book early enough, then I will probably stuff you guys with episodes. But the folks at the 10 and 5 will get more episodes first. Just seems kind of fair. But it's going to be just like with the podcast. You'll get the episodes via, whatever. Hello, Luna. However you normally get them, will just be kind of changing things up. There may be some little issues that pop up because I've never done this before. So you'll just have to be patient with me, especially with YouTube. Holy shit, what's going to happen there? Who knows? So those are the memberships that are going to come on there. I plan to keep doing this and finish Oceania, which is not finished. This is literally a serial. So I'm jumping off a cliff here, guys. But I've already got like 20,000 words done and mostly edited. I just have to get in the recording chair and make it happen. So I'm going to continue on with this and keep doing this while I'm working at Station 3. As soon as I get Station 3 undergoing and off to Severed, then I got to record that puppy or find somebody else to record it for me. But the podcast is going to remain me. That's how that's going to work. So those of you who are supporting me on the memberships are literally saying you believe in the story of me enough to say, hey, here's some money to cover some expenses while you write it. And you're going to get it every week as fast as I can get it to you. So that's basically the plan there. I will record as many episodes as I can get ahead, but there's going to be some crazy with Oceania. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much fun. In the past books, nobody knew what they were facing. This is different. This is very different. This is much more elaborate than a few SWAT folks getting stuck in a hospital. We have different weapons now. So it should be more of a fair fight, right? That's the theory. Anyway, so that's basically the deal with Oceania. I'm going to be putting up a trailer. I'll have a trailer up on YouTube on probably Friday that I'll share with y'all on whatever the different services are. Which one is best for me? Which takes the smallest cut? Oh my God. Why do you ask that question? I think Buy Me a Coffee may take the least. I think, but I'm not sure. I think Ko-Fi is 70% goes to me. Maybe it's 80. And Patreon is what Patreon is. Maybe it's more on Ko-Fi. I can't remember. I have to go look now. Patreon takes their cut, obviously, and YouTube takes their cut. I think with YouTube, you get 70% of memberships, which is really interesting because I really haven't looked into any of the membership stuff with YouTube. Setting it up was a bitch. In fact, I'm waiting for my levels to get approved. I don't know how many people are going to go for that. It's like, oh, I'm going to give you an ebook. Yeah, you're watching. So I'm not going to give you an ebook. They may not want ebooks, but I'm going to offer it to them anyway. So don't really care how people get the content, just so long as they do. Yeah, I know, Matt. I get you completely. I understand that completely. I have figured out something that may allow me to ditch some of the higher cost features of some of these platforms because I'm already using Libsyn and for the podcast, and I have extra space on there that I'm not using. So, for instance, I can host the files there without having to do anything, and just basically literally put them up there, give you all a link, and that's that. So it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier. Thanks, James. Appreciate that. And your motherfucker. So there are some ways I'm going to cheat the system as much as possible, because if you try and imagine every Friday, Paul has to go through and add content to 4 different services through 4 different interfaces and cut and paste, and will fuck up everything because he's cutting and pasting it all. That's going to be a nightmare. So, but this is what I'm doing for right now. My full-time job is making content for y'all. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. Except for I still got to do a couple things on the software contract, but there is absolutely nothing else. Y'all are my job. Stories are my job. Talking to you, narrating, those things are my job. Which also means I need to get some short stories out on the public podcast and everything. So there's going to be a lot of things going on, a lot of content dropping, and I would love to have more live shows with y'all showing up and asking questions and giving me shit. Kind of figure out the kind of community things you want to do. If you want to do like watch a horror movie with the Fiendmaster night, we can do stuff like that through Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatnot. Pick something really obnoxious and go through there, and then we could just basically pound the shit out of it on Discord. If you want me to do some interviews, you have some people you'd like me to bring up on the show, or folks you know that you'd love to hear from. John Miro, Jake Bible, Terry. I don't want Terry on my goddamn podcast. Or some other horror writers like Ed Lorne, then let me know. We can make these things happen. But that's basically the deal. So what I will do, no, I don't have it uploaded yet. Shit. I don't have it uploaded. I can't do that. What I will do for the Patreon folks is I'm going to update the link to the new trailer for Oceania. New software project for me to create my own service where you get paid directly without a go-between. Dude, is a nightmare. The biggest problem with doing any of this by yourself is the fucking storage space. With podcasts, it's easy. The moment you get into video, though, you're totally boned. Totally boned. So there are some things like Buy Me a Coffee is really getting set up for low maintenance content membership things. Wow, you write for a living, Paul? What the fuck? They've got basically they're setting up like for now. I just saw the feature. It's not available yet, but they're adding like a podcast area of their Buy Me a Coffee. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, because it may be a deal where it's like, okay, folks, you if you don't have a preferred service, here's where you go to get it, because this one's the easiest for me to manage. I get the most money from it, and it's just a lot of stupid things I could do. Ko-Fi, a lot of people love that internationally, especially for various reasons. I don't want to get into them. There's also some political angst over some things Patreon did before the election. So, whatever axe you have to grind, I've got you covered. I've got a way for you to find a way to give me money. So that's basically the deal. But there's more content coming, and the public podcast is far from dead. It's just a matter of I have to do things to try and bring up membership and get cash as quickly as possible. So if you can do the annual membership, that would be wonderful. Oh. Anyway, all that stuff will be there. I'll launch the membership stuff probably on Christmas Eve. I'll be shouting out about that all over the place. So Christmas Day, if you're a member, you will find the first episode of The Black Oceania in your inbox. There you go. All right, with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you very much for hanging out with me on my birthday for a little while. It's always fun to remember that you people exist. I see your names and occasionally comments. It's just kind of nice to talk to you in person. I think, if we have like just 7 or 8 people, we can we can do a Discord voice chat. It's TikTok. Oh my God. I don't want to do TikTok, but I may do TikTok eventually. Oh my God. Well, thank you very much, folks. And we will talk to you later. If you have burning questions, hopefully not diseases, you can also send me emails or do whatever at any time you like, and I'll answer them, or try to anyway. Maybe I won't. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll probably be wishing you happy holidays on the 25th. So we'll talk then. All right. Have a good one, y'all.